The winds blew, the trees swayed, lightning streaked across the skies. My dad went into the kitchen to close a small window above the stove. Lightning hit the glass, and short of the glass hit his forearm on the left side, and it went into a vein, and blood began to shoot up, and it hit the floor, the white floors. I stood between the threshold of the doorway from the dining area where the kitchen is, and I watched on. My dad went and got him a towel and he placed it over that, but I also saw him go to his closet. And he had his own personal closet where he kept all of his work paraphernalia. So I never understood what he went in the closet for, and still to this day I'm not sure. But it was his private closet. Now, my dad has brown eyes. The outer part that's white was never white, it was always brown, ever since I can remember. But on this particular night, things changed. My dad went to sit down on the bedside. My younger sibling sat on the side of him. All of a sudden, the outer part of his eyes, which were normally brown, had turned completely white. He sat still as a statue, and it seems like the entire house was in a stasis. But being a child, that didn't really get my attention until later in life when I thought back on it. You see, my mother worked at the hospital during those times, and she was on what you would call the graveyard shift. So during the time that my mom was at work, my dad would babysit us. And by the time my mom got off from work, my dad was getting ready to go to work. So you know children have a profound imagination, right? But you got to understand it's very powerful as well. And we need to come out the box, especially when it comes to our imagination in this world that's around us. So, leaping off of the bed to the floor with my little short feet, I ran to the kitchen, right? And I stood with a broken glass light on the floor and beneath the window. Remember, I'm short now, so I'm looking up through this window. And I yelled to the storm, "Leave my daddy alone!" I stood there with no fear, because that's my daddy. Yeah, I was daddy's little girl, so to speak, because I'm the only girl. And not knowing what was going to come next on a physical level, I just stood there. I remember I was between the ages of 4 and 5 years old, possibly five. While standing there, I looked, all of a sudden the lightning stopped. The rumbling of the thunder stopped. The trees that were swaying stopped swaying. The wind ceased. And lastly, I saw the dark clouds go away. And everything was back to normal. And that wasn't a very long time. Well, little me went back to the bedside of my dad and my siblings. And it was like as if my entire family was put in some form of a stasis until I touched my dad's arm. And upon touching his arm, he began to move. The outer part of his eye that was white turned back to its normal color. My siblings began to rustle across the bed. He, my dad, looked at his arm, noticed that it stopped bleeding, grabbed the bandages, bandaged it up, cleaned up the kitchen, the floor and all, and taped up the window until he was able to get it fixed. Now, could it have been beings from another plane who were being used by the Most High to jumpstart the art of commanding within me were at play? That's something to think about.